Okay, welcome everyone to this information session. So the next half an hour I'm just going to be talking you through a little bit about studying chemical, biochemical and materials engineering here at the University of Melbourne. My name's Dalton Harvie. I'm an associate professor in chemical engineering in this department. So this is one department which offers these three Master of Engineering degrees. Personally, I'm a mechanical engineer, originally by training, and then I came into chemical engineer because there's a fair amount of commonality in the area of fluid dynamics and stuff that I do research and work with industry in. Okay, so we're just going to go through these sort of introduction slides. If you've got any questions, please just stop me in the middle of the presentation, just shout out, put your hand up, wave, whatever you want. Okay, so there's lots of rankings, but consistently we're coming out very highly in Australia and also very highly in the world. So this is engineering. So in this particular, which is the QS World University Rankings, probably the best ranking, we're number 1 in Australia for engineering and number 27 in the world. So we're a very highly ranked university, Melbourne University, and particularly in engineering and technology. One of the things that really sets us apart from other universities, I guess, is the amount of accreditation that we have. Okay, so that means that we have EURACE accreditation, which means we have the Washington Accord. So we're covering Europe and the US at the highest master level accreditation that you can have. In chemical engineering, which is where we're sort of looking at here, we've got accreditation at M level, which is this master level from the IChemE. So that is the predominant association internationally for chemical engineering and accrediting the degrees. So that's a great advantage. If you come through the University of Melbourne system, you'll do a Bachelor of something, and then you'll end up doing a Master of Engineering, and you'll come out with the best accreditation in the world, which means what's the practical reality is that when you go and travel, you want to work in another country, you'll be accredited there. So a couple of advantages of Melbourne, I guess. So be inspired by the world's leading researchers, study at Australia's #1 university for engineering technology, ranked number 27 worldwide. So our department is very highly ranked, very well known for its research. So for example, although some of us can't seem to hold a microphone up. So here's some of the problems that we're working on, finding solutions. Oops. There we go. So chemical and biochemical engineering are really at the forefront of the problems that the world is facing today, right? So you think about food, you think about agriculture, you think about and processing food, not only the growing but also the processing food. It's all chemical and biochemical engineering. Energy, you think about the problems that we have with energy in the world, like greenhouse gases, like how we're utilising our raw materials. That's all chemical and biochemical engineering. And water. Okay, so you think about the problems that we have with water. It's maintaining a clean water supply and also disposing of that waste, right? And how we're utilising the resource of that waste. Again, that's chemical and biochemical engineering. So I think it's fair to say that this department, this degree that we're talking about, is key to finding solutions to the problem as well defining today. Preserve our environment. So I was talking about how strong this department is in research. So for example, we have people that are working in Antarctica. They've been looking at this for quite some time, at looking remediation of contamination in soils in Antarctica. Right? So you know, in generations gone past, they've had these sites down there in Antarctica. There's been spills of diesel and other fuels like that. So here in the department, we're researching ways where you can get microbes to survive and thrive in that environment. And the idea of these microbes is they're turning that biodiesel and decontaminating those sites. And of course, this has got applications also in the mining industry and natural resources, utilisation of natural resources. Okay, but you can see then that also feeds into our teaching, right? So the same people who are the experts and are developing these new techniques are also the same people that would be teaching you as you go through your degree. I think that's one of the advantages of coming to Melbourne, is that the people that are teaching you are the people who really know their stuff and are at the forefront of world research. So we're also talking about materials engineering. So materials engineering was something that we've only introduced in the department in the last couple of years. So it's a master's degree, and so there you're looking at you're looking at the structure of materials, right, and finding new structures, new materials for new applications. And generally, you'll probably like doing chemical, biochemical and materials if you've got some sort of interest in chemistry. I'd say also some sort of interest in maths, although maths is it's not the thing for us, but it's a tool that we need to use. But I also say physics and biology here as well, although it's not on the slides. I think that's also very important. So it's not just people who are interested in chemistry. So I just wanted to talk about a little bit about the research and the types of things, but let's get back to this. Be industry connected, number 7 university in the world for graduate employability. So that was an independent survey. Benefit from industry-aligned curriculum with access to internships, industry projects and innovation challenges with industry mentors. So I'll talk about this a little bit more later. Internationally recognised, I think I've talked about that a bit already, Washington Cord, Eurace, and for our department, the IChemE accreditation. And flexibility and focus. Focus on your preferred field of engineering from day one and have the flexibility to explore and build skills in different areas for competitive edge. So this is all about the Melbourne model and the flexibility inside the Melbourne model, coupled with you come out with this high-level accreditation and degree at the end. Okay, so this is something from my own type of work that I've taken as a little case study just to talk about what does a chemical engineer in this instance do, right? Because the thing about engineers is a lot of people don't have a role model or they don't see engineers in their daily life. If I said to you, what's a doctor do? A medical doctor, everyone goes, oh yeah, I know what a medical doctor does because they go and see them, right? But I think with engineering, we've got this communication barrier because they're often a step removed from most people. So let's just talk about one of these processes and I'll show you a bit of detail here just to give you an idea. So this is a spray dryer. It's a spray dryer for milk. So it's very tall, right? So you can see a handrail there. So it's probably about 20 metres tall, I'm guessing, with this one. Something like that, and probably about 7 metres diameter. So it's going to be, sort of the diameter of this room and, I don't know, 4 or 5 times the height. So these are big pieces of equipment. And the purpose of this thing here is to just dry milk, okay? And you might think, oh, I've never heard of, well, you should probably heard about spray-dried milk or skim milk powder, but you wouldn't realise that it's actually quite a big export for Australia. Australia is the 7th largest trader of dairy products internationally. Approximately 45% or almost half of the dairy products that we produce in Australia are exported, okay? So it's quite a big export for our agricultural sector. And the idea with spray dryers is to convert a lot of milk into spray dry powder and to skim milk powder. This milk powder is then exported to markets like China where it's used in cooking. It's as a protein source in cooking. Okay, so what happens in a spray dryer? This is the basic system. You've got this massive chamber there. You've got air that is pumped in from the outside. Goes through a heat exchanger, or more likely it goes through a large gas burner. Heats up the air to about 240 degrees C, something like this. So the air gets pumped around and goes into the top of this chamber. You could see the feed of the air coming in down here. So the air recirculates within this massive chamber. Meanwhile, you've got milk. So the dairy farmers bring it, they truck it there, it goes into a storage tank. Then we've got a series of pumps and stuff. Pumps go through, they pump it through into these nozzles. So they'll have a series of nozzles at the top of this chamber. So this is what a nozzle might look like here. So the way a nozzle works is that you have the milk comes in to this little cylinder. So I'm talking about what's going on inside this nozzle. Right, comes in, but it doesn't come around the centre, so it has to go around the inside of this nozzle. But the bottom of the nozzle is shaped like a cone. Right, so the milk comes in, it's going around the inside surface of this thing, gets into the cone, has to go faster and faster, and then bang, the bottom of the cone is chopped off. So the milk ends up going whoosh, and just spraying out in this big sheet. Sprays out in this big sheet, very thin, turns into droplets. Right, so you end up with this hopefully nice, very nice spray of milk. And so it sits there in this very large heated chamber. The water evaporates out of those little milk droplets and it leaves behind all the solid particles. And so the milk droplet becomes a solid particle and that's your skim milk powder. Okay? So then these things, so they're heavier than the air, right? The air is coming down here, so they drop all out the bottom. And then we have this other, it's another separation process there. It's much like the nozzle, but it's now for separating the dry milk powder from the air. So it's the same sort of thing. We've got this tangential flow. The air, which is less dense, goes up and goes out a stack here. And so you'll see the stack next to this thing somewhere. It's going to have a cloud of moisture because of all the water that's come out of the milk. And then you've got these very fine skim milk powder, which you've now got to transport through pumps and then into packaging. So you think about all the processes that we've got going here. We've got a heating up process. Somebody has to design this gas burner, has to heat up this air to 240 degrees. That's all got to be designed. You've got pumps which are taking that milk, need to pressurise it. You've got a nozzle which has got to be designed. You've got this big chamber that's got to be designed. You've got to have all this pipework designed. You've got to have this hydrocyclone, this separation process that's going to separate the particles from the air. That's all got to be designed. This thing's got to be designed. And then all this stuff that's going to be able to transport this powder through pipes and stuff, all of that has got to be designed. Okay? So it's quite a simple process, you'd think, taking milk. You could put it on a saucepan at home, right? And you could dry this off. Maybe. I don't know, actually. Even that would be difficult, right? But in chemical engineering, what we're interested in is we take a process and we scale it up and we design all the equipment around that. So we've got to understand the process, but we've got to understand all the physics of what's going on and the chemistry, what's going on in each one of these units. Okay, so you can look at this in a bit more detail. So this here, for example, is the temperature within this spray dryer. This is the water fraction. This is the velocity of the air. And this is some of the tracks of individual milk particles that would go through that spray dryer. And the colour here, so this is the top of the spray dryer, this is the bottom. So the droplets with the nozzle would be up the top there. And so these colours here, or these tracks, are showing that you've got a whole lot of particles which are sitting in the top of that spray dryer. And some of the particles are going basically straight down. They go for a bit of a curve and then they go down the bottom. So this is actually a problem, this one, because if the milk particles stay in that spray dryer for too long, they get too hot. Firstly, they degrade, right? No one likes milk that's been heated up too much. So that's a product quality issue. But also, this is an explosive issue because you've basically got a chamber, hot air, very small particles. You've got fuel, you've got an oxidant, right? So there's an explosion risk. And what can happen in these spray dryers if they're not designed properly is the milk comes and sticks to the wall. It can stick there on the chamber of the wall for a long time. It can start to char, and the worst case scenario there is it's going to burn or explode or something. But usually we're a long way away from that, and it's more about product quality. So this was actually a very bad design because this red colour means that these particles have stayed in there for longer than 30 seconds. You have a very small 500 micron or less milk particle, you keep it at 240 degrees for 30 seconds, it's not going to taste very nice. Okay? So the real issue here was that the recirculation zones in the spray dryer weren't very good. The design wasn't very good. So we can look at modelling this, we can change the design and we can make a better process, right? So that's sort of a whole snapshot of a sort of a design process in chemical engineering. Okay, so what do chemical engineers do? Invent, design and implement industrial scale processes, convert raw materials into products that we rely on. I guess that's sort of your sort of blanket statement there. Sort of industries, fuel, plastics, food additives, fertilisers, paper, pharmaceuticals. So it's a massive scope of different types of applications that you could work in. And also, we're really at the cutting edge of a lot of new fields as well. Okay, so for example, nanotechnology, looking at the design of drugs. We've got a number of people in the department, including myself. We look at the flow inside the body and we look at how molecules move inside the body, because at the end of the day, we can use a lot of our chemical and biochemical engineering techniques to look at what's going on inside something like the human. Carbon capture and storage, minerals and materials, natural gas processing and solvent extraction. So there's some typical areas that you could be working in. So biochemical engineering is very similar to chemical, except there's a use of living organisms. This is not my area, but it's basically, if you want, something like brewing, right? So in brewing, you're using a yeast, right? So instead of just a pure physical chemical reaction, you've got a living organism, something which is they're converting your product into converting your raw materials into your products. Okay, so yeast, for example, what's it doing? It's fermenting the sugars, right, producing alcohol and carbon dioxide. So for a biochemical engineer, what do you have to do? You have to get the right yeasts or the right microorganisms. You have to make sure the environment is such that you're going to get the right microorganisms to grow. Okay, so you might be also looking at Sewage treatment, right? So down in the sewage treatment plants in Melbourne, that's all sort of biochemical engineering. What sort of organisms are going to be taking that liquid waste and decomposing it and getting products from it as well, okay? So it's basically the same type of thing, but you're also using living organisms as well as straight chemical reactions. Use microbial, plant or animal cells. Applications in food and beverage, pharmaceuticals and cosmetics, environmental remediation and biological waste treatment. Materials engineering. So this is, as I say, this is a new master's degree for us, although we have done research and in this field for a long time. So it's basically looking at new types of materials. The applications could be biomedical, sustainable energy solutions, improving manufacturing process and products. And it's also, there's a whole gamut of types of materials there that you could be studying. So it's actually a very broad type of field. Okay, and let me just check the time. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so unique to Melbourne is this Master of Engineering Chemical with Business. Okay, so the idea there is that you do some business and management related subjects within your chemical engineering degree, but instead of doing them at the front where they're generic courses, at Melbourne you can do these at the back, right? And so what that means is that you do your science, you do your engineering subjects from day one, you go through your engineering, and then at the end, when you've got your engineering knowledge and you're starting to put that into practice, this is when you start thinking about the business subjects and using that engineering knowledge within those business subjects, okay? So it's just a different way of thinking about it, and we think it's a good idea. So there's 5 subjects within the Chemical with Business Masters of Engineering, and I'll show you the course plans in a sec because to make sense of this, but you do these 5 subjects at the back end of that Master of Engineering. So World of Engineering Management, this is contracts, marketing, economic analysis and strategy execution for engineers. Okay, so this year, for the very first time since the Melbourne model's been around, we've got this new thing called graduate degree packages. Now, hopefully they're not confusing you. But the idea here is that we want to get some visibility through VTAC system, right? And we also want to give a guarantee to people who come in with a high mark that you're going to be able to go through the whole program without having to meet any hurdle requirements, okay? Now, in reality, those hurdle requirements aren't generally an issue for people, but this way you can feel certain that when you come in to day one at Melbourne University with one of these graduate degree packages, that you've got a 5-year place, CSP place, sitting for you there, okay? All right, so new offering for high achieving students to apply up front for both the Bachelor degree and Master of Engineering through VTAC. Guarantees a Commonwealth supported place into the Master of Engineering if you pass your undergraduate degree. Okay, so there's a message here going out that you can be enrolled into the Master of Engineering from day one, being at Melbourne University. But if you don't get the marks for this, don't panic, okay? Because there's still a guaranteed pathway for you, okay? And let me try and talk you through that a little bit. But because this is new, we're going to concentrate on this a little bit. So these graduate degree packages, so there's 4 different combinations of a bachelor and a master of degree that you could be doing. So for chemical, biochemical engineering, this is the one that's most likely. You'd most likely do a Bachelor of Science, Chemical Systems. Okay, so that's a 3-year degree, and then within the next 2 years you can finish your master's degree in engineering, be it either chemical, biochemical and also materials. Okay. If you want to do commerce, you can do that at Melbourne University as well. It's going to be 3 + 3 years, but it'll be a full commerce degree and it'll be a full Master of Engineering. Okay. Okay, so this is the sort of generic form of what you need to do at Melbourne University. So you need to choose an undergraduate degree. The one that is tailored to fit into our biochemical, chemical, materials and chemical with business master's degree is called this one, a chemical systems major. Okay, so this is the basic plan. You do 3 years on this chemical systems and then you do 2 years in any one of these 4 Master of Engineering degrees. Okay. So you don't need the 96 or whatever ATAR to get into that, okay? You need to be able to get into the Bachelor of Science, and let me show you this here. What if I don't receive a 96 ATAR? No problems at all. That's still exactly how this system worked previously to this year, and it works. Okay, so study an engineering major through a Bachelor of Biomedicine, Design or Science, or complete another undergraduate degree with Melbourne with the relevant engineering prerequisites. If you achieve a weighted average of 65% at the end of your bachelor degree, you're guaranteed a CSP place in the Master of Engineering. Okay? So that means that the majority of people that come in and do our chemical systems, or actually do any undergraduate degree, and then go into our master's undergraduate degree at Melbourne University, and then go into our master's program, they've got a guaranteed CSP place. Okay, a guaranteed CSP place there. Yeah, so this is just showing that with the new graduate degree packages, and you get 96, okay, you don't have to achieve an average of 65 to get into the Master of Engineering. But standard entry, you do have to achieve this 65 at the end of your Bachelor of Science, but then you've got a guaranteed CSP place. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, so I can take more questions after we finish this talk. This is just giving some more detail. So the other requirements are that you need at least 25 in English or at least 30 in EAL and at least 25 in maths, methods or specialist maths and one of biology, chemistry or physics, okay? So that's what you need to get into the Bachelor of Science, Chemical Systems, which will get you into any of the 4 Master of Engineering degrees that we offer, okay? Okay, so this is just saying that yes, you can do Master of Engineering and Commerce at University of Melbourne. Within the Commerce degree, you'll be taking a number of engineering subjects, which allows you to complete that Master of Engineering in 3 years, fully accredited. Okay, what do our courses actually look like? What would you be studying day to day? So here we've got, this is the Chemical Systems, this is the Bachelor of Science that you would do first, and then this is the Master of Engineering that you would do after. So let me just talk you through a few things. Okay. So from day one, you'll be doing engineering subjects, so engineering systems design 1 and 2, chemical process analysis. So all of these subjects here are subjects that are given by our department, and all the grey ones here are, or these ones here anyway, are engineering type subjects. So you're doing a lot of engineering from day one in this Bachelor of Science Chemical Systems. But you also get a bit of flexibility there. There's 3 science electives. Actually, you can do 5 science electives during your science degree. So if you've got an interest in biology, if you've got an interest in maths or physics or something like that, you can also pick up some science subjects. Maybe you'd like to do some applied science subjects as well. You've got a minimum requirement of doing 4 breadth subjects. So that's the key. That's the key philosophy behind the Melbourne model, is that we believe that graduates should have a broad outlook on engineering. They should be able to put their engineering into the context of society. And so you need to do at least 4 breadth subjects during that Bachelor of Science. The subjects I've got in red there, these are more open-ended design subjects where we're particularly looking at things like teamwork, more of the soft skills, communication, but also importantly taking the technical knowledge that you have from other courses and integrating that and using that technical knowledge. Okay? So you can see that this runs throughout our degree, and a lot of these subjects are done in how are we going? Yeah. And a lot of these subjects are done in collaboration with industry, right? And so you'll be working on problems which are inspired by industry or for one of our industry partners. Okay? So you'll be taking that knowledge that you're using in these other subjects like particle mechanics and processing and talking about how you transport particles. Think back to that skim milk powder where you need to transport that along, right? And then in process engineering, you might be designing part of a spray drying, and you'll be part of a spray drying plant. You'll be using from that knowledge from everything else. This is our capstone project where students work in teams of 4 and 5, and they take a piece of a plant, a chemical engineering plant, so for example that spray drying plant, and they design that from scratch. And they work as a team, and that goes into, there's a national competition for those sorts of things, which we do very well in. Industry, so especially in the last 10 years, there's been a really renewed focus on industry engagement, particularly in our teaching programs. And we've got a lot of industry type experiences that you can have. So for example, internships, you can undertake a 10 to 15 weeks of professional work experience as part of your degree. So you'll be going into a company there, you'll be working day to day alongside their engineers in an internship type program, and that would be a credit towards your degree. One thing that we're particularly strong with in our department is this thing called industry projects. It's a subject that's unique to our department. And so what that is it's more of a type of a research project, but you do it in industry. Right? So for example, I'm running about 5 industry projects this semester. One of them's with CSL, and what we're doing there is that they filter proteins, and we're simulating a better understanding how they do that process so that we can optimise the parameters, and ultimately that leads to better blood products and drugs and that sort of stuff. So I've got 2 students there, and they're working day to day in collaboration with that industry and with me as well. And so we have about 50%, you have to achieve fairly well to get into that industry project scheme. We have about 50% of our students go through that project. And that's great for example, for employment and networking and that sort of stuff, as well as the experience of doing it. So we've got a mentoring program which is very strong. We have a lot of different clubs and that sort of thing, but I think I'll just keep moving with that. Do you know what the time is? 3 minutes. Okay, all right. Employment outcomes, so yeah, we're ranked number 7 worldwide for graduate employability, and I think that's partly a reflection on how well industry regards the University of Melbourne and our graduates. We've got a number of things going on there. I think I'll just move on. These are the types of industries that you can work with as a chemical engineer. So for example, companies here, which probably is interesting. So I've got Erupt, which is a consultancy company. I've got CSL, so other drug companies there. We've got Buller Food and Dairy, Carlton United Breweries, Exxon Mobil, Fonterra, another dairy company, Mars Chocolate, Melbourne Water, Rio Tinto, Woodside, Worley Parsons. Okay, so the university's got very strong relationships with all those companies. You would be expecting that we would have industry projects with each one of those companies every semester, and so students would be going out to those individual companies and working. Materials, I think I'll just leave that for the time being. So Commonwealth supported places. So I just want to get that message out that if you come to Melbourne University, you do an undergraduate degree, any of our bachelor's degrees, and then you get into the Masters of Engineering, you will get a Commonwealth supported place in that Masters of Engineering. Okay? If you do come from, if you go and do an undergraduate degree at another university, and then you come here to do your master's degree, the chances are you will get a CSP place, but it's not guaranteed. Okay? Scholarships, so there's quite a few scholarships available.